Hey everyone, this is Jason, just making sure that we are live. I'm checking on the Facebook itself to make sure, because I know the one time I don't check, it will not work, guaranteed. It looks like it is working, so we are live. So, hey there, I'm Jason Logston, and this is Exploring Sous Vide, all about helping you get the most out of your sous vide machine while talking to some of the biggest names in the industry. Today's episode is brought to you by Vesta. Vesta Precision is a sponsor of the ISVA Summit as well. And they are a precision cooking company based out of Bellevue, Washington. They've created lines of sous vide cooking equipment, vacuum sealing equipment, and bags and rolls, as well as precision cooking accessories and tools with home cooks and professional chefs alike in mind. With their products, anyone from a beginning home cook to a Michelin-starred chef can get started with precision cooking. I've used several of their machines, and it works very well, so I definitely recommend checking them out. You can do that at vestaprecision.com. I'll have Mike drop a link in the comments, but definitely check them out. And for anyone joining us, make sure you say hi in the comments, ask questions. I'll either get to them or Lennis will grab them. She is joining us to help put a little respectability to the show at the end of it. So enough about the sponsor, on to the show. So sous vide is just a method of cooking. And like all methods of cooking, the real art comes from how you combine the flavors. And today's guest is the perfect person to help us figure it all out. He's a chef, author, and Food Network personality who is a featured chef on the new Food Network Kitchen app, offering live and on-demand cooking classes. He is also the first ever two-time Chopped champion and regularly appears on television as a host and judge, including on Chopped, Beat Bobby Flay, The Kitchen, The Dr. Oz Show, and he was named one of People magazine's sexiest chefs alive. Together with his wife, Brooke Parkhurst, he authored 4 cookbooks, including the best-selling The Flavor Matrix, which is awesome, and a revolutionary new guide for chefs and home cooks about understanding and creating amazing flavor with everyday ingredients. Their follow-up cookbook, Flavor for All, will be published in fall 2020. He has long studied the science of what makes food delicious, and for 10 years, he served as the director of culinary research at the Institute of Culinary Education in New York City. While there, he led the school's collaboration with IBM to create and operate the groundbreaking project, Chef Watson, placing him at the forefront of culinary education. He also served as a culinary and innovation consultant for numerous clients, ranging from IBM to Monogram Appliances. He's just done a few things over the last 20 years. He and his wife recently opened their first restaurant, inspired by their home on the Gulf Coast, and travels through Italy, Angelina's Ristorante Italiano in Pensacola, Florida. And most importantly, obviously, he'll be doing a keynote talk at the Sous Vide Summit next week. I can't wait to learn from today's guest, Chef James Briscione, executive chef of Angelina's Pensacola and Food Network personality. Chef, welcome to Exploring Sous Vide.
Thanks, Jason. Thank you. And I'm coming to you live from the restaurant. So you'll have to excuse any banging pots or pans and things like that you hear in the background, because we're real. We're at it right now.
Nice. Getting some good ambiance. I like that. We got a few people saying hi. We got my co-founder, Mike Lashardi.
There he is.
Jeanne Shaw saying hi. Welcome, Jeanne. We have my mom. Hi, Barb. Nice to see you. Thanks for joining. She helps out moderating the comments as well. Got Neil Perlman. How's it going, Neil?
Neil? I think I'm actually talking to Neil tomorrow.
Oh, nice.
Judy Jones.
Got Judy Jones, my aunt, coming from Minneapolis. How's it going, Judy? We got everyone's favorite commenter, Kevin Liddell. I am Huggy Bear, if you were curious, James.
Good to know. I wasn't sure if he was talking to me, actually.
I know, right? It's he likes coming up with nicknames for people. So I have to admit that this is one of the hardest interviews I've had to prepare for. It's like, where do I start with the Food Network shows, the artificial intelligence pairing program, the award-winning Italian restaurant, the science of flavor, your vast sous vide knowledge? I mean, you do way, way too many amazing things. But I always like to start.
Do too many things. I will certainly agree with that part. I need to.
I can't wait to dive into all those, but I always like to ask first, what is it like around your dinner table on a typical day?
Loud, with 2 kids, my daughter who just started 6th grade and our son who just started kindergarten. There's usually some kind of conversation about Ninjago or Legos going on, and some annoyed swats coming from his sister. But it's our dinner table, I'd say, is very different because obviously we're here at the restaurant a lot. Often the kids' dinner table is a table out in the restaurant. My wife is the wine director here, so it's usually kind of hectic around our dinner table.
It sounds great. At least you're all together and enjoying it, even if you're in and out and a lot going on.
Yeah. And it's actually, we're just in our first year here at the restaurant. We actually live across the street, which is really, a blessing and a curse. I mean, it is incredible that I get to see them as often as I do, because of that proximity. The other night, after the first night of school, I got to run home for an hour and go, chat with the kids. Kind of just at the beginning of service. So to have that ability and kind of keep them around and let them be a little part of what it is we're doing here too is great.
That's awesome. I can imagine that it's really great being that close, but also like if something goes wrong, you have no excuse. So I'm walking across the street.
I'm always the first call no matter what. So that's good and bad.
We have a few more people dropping in. We got Mark Webb from Australia. He's another one of our speakers coming in. We have Diane Markman. How's it going, Diane? Coming from Delaware. We got my lovely dad. I'm sure he's excited to talk about Italian food, probably his favorite cuisine. And so first off, congrats on winning the Reader's Choice for Best Italian Restaurant in Pensacola. That's pretty amazing.
Thank you. Yes. We've had a great reception here in town. Coming in, and I think it's tough because it is as I'm sure we'll talk about, and obviously one of the things I love is innovation and challenging technique and flavor combinations and all of that. But Italian food is one of those things you can't mess with too much. People have really set ideas about what Italian food is and should be. And you got to try to try to hit those. People have very, very strong feelings about Italian food as well. We kind of coming in. We've spent a lot. My wife and I both spent a lot of time in Italy, trying doing real, true, authentic Italian that doesn't always match with the Italian American that a lot of people know or they grew up with, or that their aunts or grandparents or whoever they had. And so there was I think a learning curve for both of us, for both us as a restaurant and Pensacola as a clientele to sort of find that middle ground where we were all happy with what we were making.
People weren't coming out with an extra 3 meals worth of spaghetti and meatballs after dining with you.
Yes, and then there was never enough sauce, never enough cheese.
So Italian can mean a lot of different things. What type of Italian food do you focus on?
I think kind of our main inspiration comes from really just fresh pastas. So I love a lot of inspiration from kind of the classic Roman style pastas and the and the other pastas really of kind of the South in general, but regionally we probably pull the most from Campania and the Amalfi Coast, because I think that's most similar to what we have here on the Gulf Coast. You have this beautiful abundance of seafood. So much incredible things that we have access to from the Gulf of Mexico, and then some great farmland really nearby, South Georgia, Louisiana. We get really right now trucks coming over 3 times a week, bringing us actually, believe it or not, down here we're at the very end of tomato season. We're getting the last of our tomatoes right now. This is just getting too hot and they're wearing out. Corn and peppers and field peas and all of that great southern produce that we can kind of take and then blend into classic Italian dishes.
That's great that you have such a wide bounty around you that you can really rely on to. I don't know. I feel like that's not Italian American, but that's very Italian food.
Yeah,
is
right.
Whatever's around.
Exactly. Whatever's around, and a region by region food can be so different in Italy. So we are always kind of changing and adapting, and we just launched our pasta tasting menu, which I love. So every couple of weeks I can just pick a new region, pick a new theme, and get after it. So if I want to do something from Puglia, I can do Puglia without having to completely divert on our main menu. So it allows us a lot of flexibility and a lot of the chance to have a lot of fun with the food we're creating.
Nice. Kevin asks, is your kitchen air conditioned? He cooked in South Florida, and if they weren't air conditioned, it was brutal.
Kevin, it doesn't even matter if they're air conditioned or not, man. Once you have those hoods running and that 90-degree return air is coming in, it's air conditioned, but they're basically just, it just creates a rain system within the kitchen as that condensation starts coming down. So, that was kind of the dream was, hey, brand new construction. We'll get this. We built this restaurant. Brand new construction. We're in an office building, but we'll get this thing set just right. We'll actually have a cool kitchen, and it'll be quiet and calm, all of that. But no, just not possible in Florida. If you've got a functioning hood that's sending in return air, all bets are off.
So I assume with your sous vide background, even though it's not traditional Italian, do you work it into your restaurant?
Yes, absolutely. We're always kind of looking at different ways to utilize it. Obviously, for meat cookery, we do, and when we do special events, so we'll do, in addition to the tasting menu, we try to do like once a month some kind of special dinner. So that's where we can get kind of a little bit more involved and kind of get a little bit fancier with things. Short ribs, we throughout the fall and winter typically we do a Chianti braised short rib, and actually probably my favorite sous vide. If I'm stealing a question from later on, just go ahead and check this one off of the list. My absolute favorite thing to cook sous vide is 48-hour short rib.
Nice.
Absolutely, love it. So we were doing, a Chianti reduction and then getting that in the bag with the short ribs after, and we would sear the short ribs in the wood-fired oven. So you get that nice crest, you get a little bit of that smokiness, and then you get that wine to infuse in 48 hours. Beautiful, pull apart tender, but still basically cooked medium. Then
what temp do you use?
48 hours, 58 Celsius.
Nice. That sounds amazing. So you sear it first and then sous vide it with the wine reduction in the bag.
Yes, exactly.
Nice. Darren's just joining us. He's another regular from Firewater Cooking Podcast, a great sous vide podcast, talking to a lot of big people there and a speaker at the conference.
Nice. Oh, yeah. Actually, Darren, don't worry about being late. I think I'm way late on responding to an email to you, too. So we'll sort that out eventually.
Do you know the Celsius to Fahrenheit conversion for that off the top of your head?
I want to say it's right about 135. I've got an easy app here. Let's see.
Yeah, I think that's about right.
136.4. So yeah.
Perfect. I know. Otherwise, everyone will ask because we're
yes,
we're all horrible at it.
48 hours, 136.5 Fahrenheit on that, and that's I think for a lot of people, what I've found kind of in all of the years of work and cooking sous vide, that's kind of the bottom. That's kind of the lower limit on breaking down connective tissue and making tough cuts tender. I don't know about you, but I've never really had any success for anything below that. As far as really, that's where you really start to get that. All of the all of your connective tissue begins to break down is pretty much right at that temperature. Anything lower, and it's always going to have a lot of toughness.
Interesting. Yeah, I do like chuck roast a lot at like 130, 131, and it seems to tenderize after like 36 to 48 hours, but it definitely doesn't fall apart quite as much as at like 135, 140. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
So let's talk about your books. I mean, you put out some amazing things. I want to start with the Cognitive Cooking with Chef Watson. I mean, that's such a cool idea. How did you decide to work with a computer to create recipes?
That is really where it all began. And that was, when I was at ICE in Manhattan. And actually IBM came to us and they kind of had this idea that they wanted to tackle this concept of a computer helping people be more creative. And they wanted to explore the different ways that could potentially happen. And one of them was through cooking. So I was very skeptical. I didn't think it was going to work. Like, I don't know how, a computer could possibly know more about, flavor than I would from, first of all, years of cooking, but also just, standing in a kitchen and smelling and tasting. So I was like, this is going to be easy to beat the computer at this. I wasn't worried about it at all. And then, as we got into it and I saw the science that was involved in it and kind of these aspects of food that I'd never considered, that, Watson was considering and using, to kind of show different flavor combinations and for us kind of on the back end, being able to actually see why they worked. I was just absolutely fascinated, totally blown away by it. And that just kind of, ignited these last 5-6 years of what I've been doing.
I think it's always interesting to try some of the flavor combinations that seem like they wouldn't be good, and when they actually pair so well together, and it's just our whatever prejudices or preconceptions we have going into it, we would have never come up with it on our own.
Yeah, and it was like, whoa, where did that come from? How did that happen? And that was, that was really what the project was all about with Watson. We were forced kind of into this situation where we were just going to go and put blind faith in whatever the computer suggested to really, and none of us knew at the beginning if it was really going to work or not. But we were just like, all right, we're going in, we're going to take the ingredients that it gives us, and we're going to do our best to make something, out of it. Time after time, it worked. And, but it was really cool, one, learning kind of the science behind it, but two, learning that, approach to cooking where you're going to say, all right, forget everything I know about tomato and what I think goes with tomato, because that's all just built on my previous experience and what someone else thought went well with tomato, and on down the line. It's all just built on previous experience. This was, you force yourself to kind of wipe out any preconceived notions of what's supposed to go together and start from zero.
What was the most interesting flavor combination that was like unexpected that you really didn't see coming?
Strawberry and mushroom.
That sounds horrible.
Really right. It does. Absolutely. You're like, no, never. But then when you start to kind of like strip away, a lot of the stuff and you get to, you get to a lot of the underlying, like, a strawberry is really just kind of a tomato with a little bit of sugar and perfume. Mm-hmm. And really depending on the tomato, it can be just as sweet or just as tart as a strawberry also. So it's really just sort of those floral and fruity aromas that are accentuated in the strawberry that really differentiate it from the tomato. And that was how we, in the flavor matrix kind of came up with the strawberry ketchup on the chicken and mushroom burger. Was, kind of, okay, so you go through that process and you start thinking about a strawberry as if it were a tomato. And we go, all right, what are we going to do? What typical tomato product now do we want to make out of strawberries? And a strawberry spaghetti sauce seemed like a little too far of a reach for me.
That's not on the tasting menu next week.
Yeah, it is not. I don't know if that's going to make a tasting menu here.
And then that led to your the flavor matrix, which was just another amazing book. And when I dove into that one, it's crazy that the way that you look at different flavors and ingredients and break them apart to kind of recombine them.
And that was the whole Watson project, where it sort of, revealed this world of the science and the different combinations, to me, and having access to all of that in these incredibly dense databases from these food parent, from these food websites, from these chemistry websites. It was fascinating. If you knew sort of what all that meant and how to read it and how to read into the connections, you could do so much with it. But it would take me hours, just to teach kind of, even an experienced cook those processes and then how to understand it. And then them another, countless hours to kind of get through it. So I was like, all right, all of this information is so fascinating and so, kind of empowering for cooks everywhere. We've got to sort of sift through this and lay it out in an easy to understand, easy to read manner that, will become one of these great, cooking reference tools. And that was the flavor matrix.
And you have all these really cool like charts, these spiral charts. That's kind of like the key tool in the book. Can you talk about a little bit what is going on in the spiral?
So, the kind of course, starting with the concept that all flavor comes from aroma. Whatever, aromas are in a food, are expressed as flavor. And when you're going through a wine tasting or a coffee tasting or a beer tasting, you're used to looking at these different charts that show all of these different aromas that would commonly be found in those beverages. We never really kind of looked at food that way. So, to me, it made the most sense. All right, that's how we want to look at food. So you have your central ingredient there in the center, and then each bar going around is a separate data point, and that's actually that's actually a 0 to 100 scale that goes around in a circle. It includes all the different aromas and shows you both specific ingredients and aroma categories that pair well with a certain ingredient. So like here where we're looking at the egg, you look for some of the bars that stick out the furthest. Not a surprise. You see dairy sticks out really far. We know milk, butter, cheese, all great with eggs. And then you see kind of a moderate length, but a really wide section in the earthy. So that shows that there's a broad range of ingredients. So the pairing is not quite as strong, but the wide range of ingredients go really well. They're talking about mushrooms, potatoes, all of those type things, that go really well. Also, and then looking over. Sorry, I got to get close here. Roasted and toasted. So your brown and your kind of smoky aromas, go really well with eggs as well. Again. That's science revealing a little bit of some of the stuff that we already know. Bacon, right? Brown and smoky, bacon and eggs, right? You can't, of course, you can't beat it. But then we see, I think that is wine. Is it wine? There's a strong phenol that, right. The tallest red bar there.
There's tea. And wine's right next to it. Yes.
So some of those phenolic compounds, match up really well with egg as well. And then so we kind of took this concept, broke it down across 58 different ingredient categories. So you really kind of have this wide range where you can go and say, all right, right now coming in, or right now at the farmer's market, there's all this squash, right, or zucchini. I want to make the most of it. So you can flip up into the zucchini page, find all the ingredients that pair best, and then you either kind of create your own recipes or say, I've got my zucchini recipe that I absolutely love, but here's a cool new ingredient I can add into it that's going to kind of just change things up and make it different and exciting.
I just love the way that it breaks down things in such a different way that as a cook, especially just a home cook, I never really considered, breaking it down into kind of the chemicals and the aromas present in each individual ingredient and then recombining them in, great flavor pairings.
Yeah. I think because we all get trained and we all sort of learn in that way of just, okay, here's let me just memorize the list of ingredients that are the things that go well with eggs. But, now we can sort of look at it and say, well, the main flavors in eggs come from, X, Y, and Z aromas. So if I can either find the match or the counterpoint for those, for that aroma, then I'm starting to, figure out the way to get my own ingredients in.
And then you have your new book coming out, which is Flavor for All, and that's coming out. You and Brooke worked on that, and it's coming out in October. What's the thrust of that?
Yes, October 27th. So what we did there was, as we kind of, the Flavor Matrix has been out for about 2 years now. And people would always ask us about how did we cook at home, or what were some of our favorite things to make with, things we learned from the Flavor Matrix. So that's really what this book is, where the focus of the Flavor Matrix is the pairing and the data and just sort of the information, so that people can be creative on their own. While there are recipes in there as well, this is all about the recipes, and it's 100 like everyday style, regular Wednesday dinner, but some special occasion as well recipes for people that. And each one started as a little seed or a little kernel from the Flavor Matrix. We took one specific pairing, and then built off of that.
Nice. So it's the Flavor Matrix is more of a reference that people can turn to time and time again, and the one coming out is much more of a recipe cookbook for people that are just ready to kind of hop in the kitchen and make some really unusual pairings.
right, make dinner, or you're entertaining. And we kind of tried to build it around sort of the way that we tend to live, and the way that we tend to cook at home. Which is, we're going to go buy a big pack of chicken at the store, and then, bring it home and make a large quantity of something, and, plan that, hey, that's going to be kids' lunches one day. That's going to be our dinner this night. And, we're going to have it, we're going to take that main protein and then put it over this salad, 2 days later. And so it's actually kind of the book is organized that way. So there's a pasta section, there's a chicken, a beef, a pork. And then with that, we also kind of blended in the 10 years at the Institute of Culinary Education, teaching people how to cook. Like everything, it's kind of like your basic crash course in cooking chicken and cooking beef, cooking pork, and preparing vegetables and working with grains and all these different things that we cover in there, plus a bunch of drinks and desserts. So you got it all.
Sounds amazing. I'm definitely going to check that out when it comes out. I've really loved your other two books, so I'm sure it's definitely going to find a place on my bookshelf, as crowded as it currently is.
I know. You're just like me. I just need a bigger bookshelf.
Yeah, I think you had the right idea moving to Pensacola. I moved from Connecticut to Brooklyn, so my bookshelves are getting smaller.
Yes. Yeah. That's not easy. That's not an easy task.
I know when we had talked before, you'd mentioned using sous vide for vegetables and preservation with that bounty around you. How do you approach using sous vide to help preserve some of this stuff when it's in peak season?
Yeah, so that's one of the things that I've kind of really been into lately, and have been interested in exploring with sous vide, and something we used to do a bit of, but as far as just preserving in different stages food, and really obviously so I think sous vide is the perfect technique for that, because we're able to sterilize, exclude oxygen, and when you're trying to preserve something. Obviously, bacteria and oxygen are your number one enemies. So with, and a lot of, for a lot of stuff, we do use a chamber sealer, which is sort of the key to it. But, the pickling techniques, and then storing them in bags. And, I also love, even though we are in Florida, and you're in Brooklyn, so I'm not looking for sympathy here, but, storage is always an issue, right? So, jar upon jar upon jar of pickled whatever takes up a massive amount of space, and also takes a massive amount of pickling liquid. But when you can stuff a bag full of cucumber slices and pour in just enough pickling liquid to get up to the top of that, and then vacuum seal it, not only are you getting that immediate infusion into it, but the consolidation of space and product in pickling. Or if you're doing a fermentation where you just, even like making sauerkraut, just taking cabbage with salt and sugar and sealing it in a bag and letting that go, you're getting that compression, you're getting that space saving, and letting, because all of these things they do best with time, and then of course from a food safety aspect. First of all, making sure everything's sterile, but then also, once everything's in the bag and sealed, to go dip it in a pot of boiling water for 60 seconds, pull it, ice bath it, and then you're right on to storage. It is incredibly easy and incredibly efficient.
How long do you generally let your pickles sit before you open them? What's your kind of sweet spot?
Depending on the style that we're doing, if we're doing kind of like a quick pickle with a vinegar, with that strong vinegar brine or bread and butter style, they're ready overnight, which is another huge benefit, because of that vacuum infusion and how quickly you're moving all of that brine into the product. Others can be like 3 weeks. Right. If you're doing kind of that, the more slow kind of slow pickle, or just the salt brine, without the vinegar, it can 3 weeks minimum, depending obviously depending on the size. But again, that's still so much faster than doing it in jars in your cellar or countertop. And obviously the smaller you get the pieces that you're pickling, the faster it happens.
I'd love to hear more about your sauerkraut making process, because my wife loves sauerkraut, and something that I've thought about doing, but I've always just been a little intimidated, having a crock sitting on my counter for 2 or 3 months. So I'm curious to hear how you do it in the vacuum sealer.
So, probably exactly. It is, you kind of find your sauerkraut recipe that you like or that you want to try. All of the beginning steps are the same, where you're going to, shred up the cabbage, add your, obviously add your salt, and then whatever else you may be doing. If you're going to, put the caraway seed or whatever, I typically do caraway seed and just a little bit of Calabrian chili. But I like a little bit of spicing, so it's almost like you're almost getting like a little bit of that kimchi kick, but still it's much more cabbagey. Massage in the salt, work it in the bowl, and then save all those juices that collect up in the bowl. Transfer everything in the bag, pour that juice into the bag, and then seal it. And then for that you wanted to get things going, and you kind of watch it and see, but 24 to 72 hours at room temp, depending on the temperature, and then you can move it into the fridge from there.
Nice.
And then you can watch it and play with it. With all of those. The really fun thing you can do obviously too is you can make that giant bowl of cabbage, huge batch, divide it up into bags, and do chili in one, do garlic in one, do caraway in this one, no caraway in that one. Alternate it up. If you really want to go the kimchi route, and you can even kind of make a faux kimchi with some ginger and radish, into another one. So you kind of break out those micro batches and keep them all separated while still under that one big mix.
I need to do that more often, I think, with the pickling and the fermentation. It sounds something that I haven't explored nearly as enough as I need to.
And, preserved lemons is another great one that I love. I just cut the lemons into quarters, toss them, obviously same idea, salt and sugar mix, and then seal them up. And just like we have a whole big fish like Lexan, the ones we all typically use for sous vide, but like the double wide of that, full of vacuum sealed lemons and oranges, and we get all the beautiful Florida citrus. So preserve it, kumquats, loads of kumquats.
Nice. Mike says that he had a conversation with Jamie Simpson from Chef's Garden today, and he's going to present something similar about pickling at the summit for our Pro Track. So that should be good. Here's a nice late edition replacing one of our other speakers. That'll be perfect.
Nice. I will. I'll be tuning into that one because I love Jamie, and I'm sure I can learn plenty from him on that one.
Is there any sneak preview you can give us of your talk? What to expect from the long-awaited keynote, and hopefully no plane issues this year, right?
No excuses this time. No excuses at all. Yes. So I think we want to. It's kind of a little bit what we've been talking about. Like where do you find the inspiration? Where do you find the creativity? And sort of what that creative path and that creative process looks like. And we're gonna talk a little bit more about sort of the science of flavor and how my work with Chef Watson and developing the flavor matrix kind of led me down certain paths. But obviously it's pretty damn unique what I had the opportunity, what I did and what I had the opportunity to do. And not many other people are going to have the opportunity to team up with a group of engineers from IBM who are at the forefront of Watson, but how everyone, even a home cook, the weekend warriors who do it just because that's what they love doing on the weekend. What does that creative process look like?
Mm-hmm. I think everyone asks like, what am I looking forward to at the conference, and that your talk is right at the top of my list. I can't wait to hear you dive into all of this stuff in a lot more detail.
Thank you.
We had a question from Graham Jones who said, I love grilled octopus. Would be curious if you've done it sous vide or not, and if it works well.
Done a ton sous vide. Love it sous vide. We do. So first thing you do is you'll still do your traditional quick blanch on it. I usually blanch it for just about 30 seconds or so, boiling water with a little bit of lemon in it, and then take them out, put it into the bag. I like to kind of my main one was I would take a bit of olive oil throw some smashed garlic cloves, a big spoonful of smoked paprika, and bring that up like just till the garlic starts to bubble in the oil. And then let that cool back down so you really get that big infusion of the smoked paprika and the garlic into the oil. Once that cools back down, put it in the bag, seal it up, and then hold on. Let me see if I can pull this up while I'm talking to you. I want to say 8 hours at 78 Celsius. Let me see.
That's 172 Fahrenheit.
Let's see. Here we go. Sorry, 6 hours. So 6 hours at basically 170.
Nice.
6 hours at 170.
All right. And then when it comes,
sous vide octopus is phenomenal. And then when it comes out, so just take it out, flash it on the grill really quick, and go. It's awesome.
I need to try that. My father-in-law loves octopus, and it's been something that I've thought about doing, but always been slightly intimidated because I've heard that it's really hard in general.
The thing that's amazing about octopus cooking that you will not believe and you would never know unless you do it inside a bag is the water loss. When you finish, you're gonna think something went horribly wrong. There's going to be so much liquid in the bag, and the tentacles are going to be shrunk down. But that's the normal process. There's just so much water in the octopus when it's raw. Of course, you never notice the water change because if it's simmering on the stovetop, it's just liquid moving into liquid, and you don't really notice. You feel like it tightened up some. But in the bag, you see how dramatic that kind of phase change is as it goes from raw to cooked, because all that liquid stays contained inside the bag, and it's crazy. You'll definitely think something went wrong, but I promise it's not. You're good.
I always think it's funny when people are like, "Oh, well, look at all the liquid in the bag. I thought sous vide was supposed to you stop liquid loss," and it's like you just don't see all the liquid coming out when it's on the grill or in a pan. That's what all the smoke coming off is.
Exactly.
Mike says when he did octopus, it blew his mind. There's so much water coming out, but it was delicious.
It is. It's insane.
Well, I'm going to bring in Lennis Perez now. She'd been monitoring the questions, and she's probably come up with some more great questions of her own. Do you need anything from me, Lennis?
I think we're good. I honestly believe that everyone is either drooling or just in awe with their minds, ready to dive into the kitchen and try the different flavors that we just saw. Just that one circle, it's making our minds explode right now. That was fantastic. Thank you so much. So we have a question from Jeannie. She's asking, where do you put your lemons and oranges? I guess that's when you're like pickling and doing that. Okay,
so where do we put them? So cut them into quarters, into bags, and then I do keep those in the fridge. And that's just because it's so much, and that kind of slows the process. But we do a case of lemons. We're talking about doing 100+ lemons at a time. But they would be fine to stay room temperature. If you're doing a smaller quantity, or just doing it at home, you didn't have the room in your fridge. I've got a giant walk-in, so it's not a problem for me to get into the fridge. But they could totally stay room temperature, and they'd be fine if they're sealed.
Okay, great. So I'm curious, what are some of your favorite kitchen tools that you say, if you were left in an island and you had to pick 3 things that you have to bring with you, what would those be?
Oh, wait. I mean, obviously a knife, right? Is that one of them?
That counts. That's a tool. Okay. You need that, right?
Yeah, we got to have a knife, and then I want a good pair of tongs and a fish spatula.
There you go. So keep it basic.
That's
just
all
survival mode, right? Fantastic. So we heard that you've done so many things, and I'm sure that just doesn't stop. You're continuously doing and creating, and we're looking forward to your keynote speak on how we get that inspiration, or how you share or believe we get that inspiration for. But how do you unplug? I'm curious about that.
Yes. So, that is one of the fantastic things about having moved back to my hometown in Pensacola, Florida. We head out on the boat. So since we moved back, we got a boat, and just to pull away and head out on the water. Go find parts of. We have gorgeous beaches here. Emerald green water and white sand, and we just go get on the boat and find a spot of beach where there's no one else around, and it's just me and my wife and our kids, and we swim and play and eat, and that's it. That's the main way.
Yeah, nice. That sounds fantastic. So Kevin is asking, do I detect a hint of a Philadelphia accent?
Wow. Kevin, you've got an incredible ear. Maybe a little bit, but it's not Philadelphia. I was actually born in Toms River, New Jersey. So it's obviously very close to this. But yes, yeah. The Italian family from Toms River, New Jersey. But we moved here to Pensacola when I was 5 years old.
Okay.
I lived here till I was 18, and then then I was off into the world in New York City for. I was away for about 20 years, and now I've just made it back home here.
Nice. So very good. Wow, that ear is amazing. So
I'm impressed.
This close. So what projects are you working on right now that you are really excited about, or just in that imagination phase where you're really getting ready to dive into?
Oh, well, so obviously the restaurant keeps me very, very busy. That's always ongoing. And, we have our pasta tasting menu. So, every 2 weeks we're putting out a new series of dishes, which is really exciting, keeps me super engaged and always kind of pushing for what's next. And then we got the cookbook launching in October. So that's another, another really big piece. But I'm actually very excited. And, it's going to feel like just a shill for the show, but like really we're diving back into sous vide at the restaurant. And it's tough, obviously, with Italian food. And I forget who it is. Somebody's doing a great reinventing Italian classics during the summit, which I'm excited about as well. Reinventing Italian classics for sous vide. But kind of, getting back into that, and sort of the season now, as we've been talking about preserving and all of that. Just kind of diving back into a little bit more sous vide here at the restaurant. Nice.
Yeah, I think Mike is saying Stefan will be doing that session, and he's asking if as the ISVA, can we do a pilgrimage through Italy with you?
Yes,
so it's ready
to do it. Absolutely.
We got to plan that. I think that's going to be one of the future upcoming ones. Once Americans are allowed in Italy.
Yeah, once we're allowed back, I know it's killing me. I'm ready to go.
Yes. So let's go back. So you're talking about you were born in Toms River, New Jersey, moved to Pensacola, Italian heritage. What are your first memories of food? Can you walk us through what you saw in the kitchen and that kind of rub off and inspired you?
It all definitely all goes back to my grandmother's house, and she lived in like Monmouth, Long Branch, New Jersey. So just a little bit further north. But definitely her Sunday suppers at Nana's house. It was typically either chicken cacciatore or just simple sausage and meatballs. Always, of course, properly done, served in a big bowl on their own. Pasta served separately.
Right.
And then of course, the Christmas Eve, the Italian Christmas Eve, is an all day affair, and we'd always have the big Italian Christmas together. And I just remember all of the aunts and everyone being by, and sitting there arranging the antipasto platter, and preparing all the different seafood and making all the pasta. And it was kind of the whole family was working together for days, and particularly that one full day of Christmas Eve to prepare those meals.
Yeah, I think it's one of those where if you think about Thanksgiving, blow it into like 10 times bigger for Christmas Eve, right? It's just
exactly
a feast. That's amazing. So Mike asked, what do you think is the next big thing in the culinary industry?
Oh, what is the next big thing? I don't know. And I don't know. All of our worldviews are so skewed right now, because it's like well, all I ever see on Instagram is this. I'm like, yeah, that's the people I choose to follow. I think, but I think maybe it's wishful thinking on my end because it's my big thing. I think pasta. I think pasta is about to make a huge comeback.
Yeah, I think people being afraid of carbohydrates, it feels like it goes in waves, right?
Yes.
So they're starting to realize that they're not bad, especially if you're making them fresh at home, the real traditional Italian way.
Yes.
It's just going to be an amazing comeback. So
yeah, you just need to eat 2 pounds of it. You know, you do these beautiful handmade pastas. You have a nice, delicate plate of them, and it's fine. That's the way it's supposed to be.
Right. Yes. Yeah. Well, we like to take things a little to the extreme, but that's just how. Yeah, super size for sure. Good. So I am very excited to see you at the ISVA Summit. Is there? You mentioned a couple of sessions. Is there any other session that you're truly excited to dive into and to watch at the ISVA Summit?
Yeah, so the reimagining Italian, the surprise with the Jamie Simpson, I think is going to be awesome. And then I'm always I don't care what the title is. David from Poli Science. If David's in, if David's doing it, I'm in. I want to watch. I know I'm going to learn something. So always love to see David and the Korea crew. All of them. I don't remember AJ is presenting or not, but AJ and I AJ Schaller and I go way back to Restaurant Danielle when we cooked together when we were both little kids.
Wow.
But excited to see always anything from that crew as well.
Yes, they are incredible. We're all excited about it. So I'm going to go back to sous vide and ask one of our traditional questions on this live, which is, what have you cooked sous vide that you've said, I'd rather eat it traditional or cook it the traditional way?
Good question. Because I taught sous vide for years at ICE. I think, and that was always sort of my thing when I was teaching it. And guys, I'm going to take you through. We're going to make all kinds of things sous vide, and I'm not telling you this is the absolute best way to do it. I want to show you guys what's possible, and then you need to decide. Do you like it better this way? Do you like it? Do you like it better otherwise? One thing that's kind of surprising for me, it's a little bit of a different product, but I think still is very serviceable and works well. Is risotto. I actually like doing so that's in the positive column. For me, honestly, it's fish. Just like single portion fish. If you're just gonna do like 2 pieces of salmon,
right?
I'd rather sear it in a pan.
Yeah. It's interesting. Everybody has like their own thing, because our last guest on this show, he said that was his favorite thing to cook was like a piece of salmon in sous vide.
Okay.
And some people say vegetables. I feel like vegetables get tossed on the side with the sous vide, but yeah.
Well, and that, to me, that all comes down to your setup. Like, I think, it can be a lot. But if you've got the setup and you've got a chamber spoon, you've got all that stuff and you're ready to go, like vegetables can be fantastic. Like sous vide, we do just bags of asparagus spears and they come out amazing. It may seem like a lot of trouble, but the convenience of it, I think is great. But yeah, that's very funny, and it is a very personal thing, and I think that's one of the things I always try to communicate, and when I'm teaching people about sous vide, like, guys, when someone taught you how to grill, you didn't suddenly have to grill every single thing you ate. It's a technique to learn and to utilize, and it's not the right answer for absolutely everything.
Yeah.
It's fun to learn all the different things you can do, and then some of them yes, some of them no.
Yeah, and variety, pick and choose. So Mike is asking, what is your time and temperature for risotto?
So 85 Celsius, 45 minutes, and I have to pull up the ratios. I want to say we were just 2 to 1 with the rice and the liquid. I'll send Mike a recipe. But 85 Celsius, 185 Fahrenheit for 45 minutes.
For 45 minutes. That sounds like a perfect dinner dish to start right now for me. So this is wonderful. Thank you so much, Chef James. I'm gonna bring Jason back if he's ready to make his appearance. And I won't ask you about your cocktail because I already saw you sipping on water. So you're.
It's actually it's non-alcoholic, but it's a simple syrup infused with rosemary and rhubarb with some club soda and a little bit of lime juice. So I still, just for you, Lennis, I still went a little fancier than just water.
I love the mocktail version.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to AJ speaking on pro tips for the home cook. Gerard's doing the cook along lunch for the pro track about using sous vide, how you can use it to change up some meals and to reduce waste. And we have Harmeet from Crea's going to be talking about HACCP planning. So the three of them should have some great presentations from Crea. And then Dave Petrancic's doing Beyond Steak and Eggs, talking about vegetables and rice and beans and all the things that he loves that isn't a protein, basically.
See, I just call him David because I'm afraid to pronounce his last name. I just always stick with David.
He's done so much for the ISVA, and I was like, he's been nice to me even before I got started with this. Much like you, he's always made time for me, even when I was just a random schmo with a blog, and has always been unfailingly gracious. And so I was like, I'm introducing him. It's like the second session at the conference. I'm going to say his damn name right, and I just butchered it. I've been practicing it for like 3 days, so I now know how to say Chef Petrancic because I just like screwed it up. I was like, great, that's exactly the last thing I wanted to do to start off the entire conference was butcher one of our main people's names. So well, Chef, I appreciate you coming on, sharing your knowledge. I learned a lot. I'm sure everyone listening has learned a ton. So thank you for joining us today.
Thank you.
Yes.
If anyone out there wants more of Chef Briscione, check us out at the Sous Vide Summit. You can get your tickets now. And then check out Cognitive Cooking with Chef Watson, the Flavor Matrix, Flavor for All coming out in October. Make sure you pre-order that. Go have dinner at Angelena's and just have a good time. Check it out on the Food Network and all the other 10,000 things he is doing. So thank you for joining us, Chef. I appreciate it. And thanks to everyone for joining us and asking all the great questions. This has been Exploring Sous Vide. We're all about helping you get the most out of your sous vide machine while talking to some of the biggest names in the industry. Till next time, I'm Jason Logston. Thanks, everyone.
Bye.